Welcome back to the Salty Sarge Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you subscribe to your podcast. I am Hunter, joined today by the namesake himself, the Salty Sarge.
Hey, everybody, right here.
Woo! We want to wrap this up with a little Q&A for the Salty Sarge himself. So the first thing I wanted to dive into was there was a story that you had shared to me in private that I would like to put on the record. That was from your dad, and it was a quote that he gave you, and I thought it was incredible, and I think people need to hear it.
So when he told me, when I came to him and said, hey, I really want to be a police officer, and he said, well, there's a lot of sacrifices there, and it's a good job, and there's a lot going on. He goes, the best thing I could explain it, and how he summed it up was, it's the greatest show on earth because it's live. And there's nothing you could take away from that. Everything you go to is happening, and it's unbelievable sometimes. You don't know, and that's the most, straight to the point way you could explain it. It truly is like that because, I look at it, some people are like, why do you do this job? And I'm like, well, you could sit in an office all day and you know what you're going to do tomorrow. If you're sitting in a cubicle. At least when I get in that police car and I go 10-8, we call it 10-8 available, I don't know what the dispatcher is going to send me. They may say, hey, go to this call, go to that call. You don't know. So I think that's the kind of the fun part about it sometimes, and it's the irritating part because you're like, oh, man, I'm getting this call again. But it is fun, and it is absolutely the greatest. I've seen so many phenomenal events that I just look back and go, I cannot believe that just happened. I can't believe that we went through that. And I can't believe that. How are people going to believe us that really happened? Because there's no way, to explain it. Because it truly is the greatest show on earth. And it's free tickets and it's live.
Yeah.
That's just how I can explain it.
And yeah, the thing about it is that it really is unbelievable, some of the stories you're going to hear. And you can't make them up. Because the truth is crazier than any story that you can fake.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Some of the most longest running live reality TV shows are involved with cops, and that's what slays me is a lot of people don't like policemen or cops, but it's because you're too scared to become one of us or you don't qualify to do it, but. If you look at the cops, the show Cops, it came out in the 80s, and the first episode, there was a shooting that at the very end in New York, and those guys just had a camera and a crew, and they said, let's just try this out. And then, bam, we got something. So,
and it was a hit.
Yeah, it was a true hit right there. So, and then you got Live PD, you got all these episodes, these shows that come out, and what I like about Live PD is it's just basic stuff, okay? Cops only covers, the major events. Whereas Live PD, it's like they go to a traffic stop or they go here, and it's like just routine things that might go awry, that might not. But still.
But you got the same sense of eeriness of, is something going to go wrong here? Right.
And the best thing that sums up, it's just like my dad said, it is live and it's the greatest show because, that has always stuck with me. As long as I've been a police officer, and I tell my rookies that I train, and I tell younger officers that I mentor, is, man, when you have a bad day, just remember that was fun. If you really think about it, that was pretty fun.
You have a story now.
Yeah,
this is chaotic.
Where else are you going to see that at? Yes. My sister, when I graduated the academy, she gave me a journal, and she said you should write stories down because my dad was like, I wish I wrote stories down, and I never did. I never did that. And when you kind of pushed me. You persuaded me to do this. And this is to me, I could take this and say, my kids someday could listen to this if they wanted to. Or, hey, though, these are stories that I've been a part of that, I could have wrote down, but you can just listen to them.
I will tell you with my own voice.
Yeah, these are what really happened. I was there, and this is what happened.
Yeah. So one thing you did say there is you're training people. You are FTO?
Yes, I'm a field training officer. Have been for about 13 years. I've been training rookies, all different. We have phases. So there's first phase through fourth phase. In every phase, they're required to do a certain amount of, they're supposed to do all the work, but you have to make it through all four phases, which is about 4 months worth of training. And once you get signed off, you're basically blessed as a metro police officer, and you go out and you do the job.
Yep.
And there's detailed things that we cover. There's sections we cover. We grade you daily. And when we do things, whenever you mess up, it's called we ding you. And I know some field trainers would have like a bell. They would ring and it would go. They would ding you like, hey, there's your ding, you know. And I always tell people like, hey, you got that ding out of the way. So, because in those categories, you have to have like a bad category, like your what did you do the worst today, and then what did you do the best. So sometimes
was it like military where you couldn't ever be perfect because then you'd have to explain why they were perfect?
Well, I mean, I'm the kind of FTO though. Let's be real there. I like how you brought that.
Like everybody's getting fours.
Because there is like right. So the minimum was a 4. That's like the medium, right? And the highest was a 7.
Okay.
And I felt like if a rookie, like say there's a house fire and they run in that building, right? They do above and beyond more than anybody else. They need a 7. I would give them a 7 because I'm like, but you can't do that. But why? They did exactly what they needed. They actually did more than what some street cop that's got 30 years on would do.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I mean, there were some that they would get like a 7, and there were some that they would get, you know, that there's been rookies I trained. Like I filled in one night on my day off, covered overtime, and it was the worst experience I've ever had as a trainer. I didn't like this guy. I was like, but other FTOs showed up, right, that I used to work with. And they're like, hey, we're glad you're here, Dan. I'm like, why? We're going to let you get this guy squared away. And they would show up on traffic stops just to see how I'd handle it because I'm like, because they're like, the last FTO didn't do a good job. Like, we can't believe this guy's still here. And this guy questioned everything. Like, I'm like, are you for real right now? And there was a point to where I was like, hey, man, I'm fixing to drop you off in that mall parking lot and just kick you out of my car. I mean, because have you ever been a police officer before? He goes, no. I'm like, then how do you know? You know, I mean, and there are moments where you're like, I'm tired of training. Like, I'm just done with this. I don't want to do, I need a break. And you come to work and you're like, hey, we need you to kind of help out with this guy. And I'm like, I don't want to, but I need a break. Well, yeah, but you're a good FTO. Okay. So I look at the rookie and go, hey man, here's the deal. Like, you're 4 phase. I'm not great. I'm just grading you. I'm not going to help you with anything. I'm not going to. And this guy, I'll never forget this guy. He goes, well, you know, but he goes, but you're a good officer. Like, I would like some input still, you know? And I'm just like, but I don't want to give input. I don't want to help you. That means I have to document it. I don't want to help you. I just want you to show up here and do the job. Because he just didn't get along. There was a personality conflict. So they try to square you up with people that might have the same personality as you or that you could train. And I always got, and I don't mean that like that. It's just, I got stuck with, I didn't get stuck with anybody, but the FTO coordinator at the time was a nice gal. She was a good officer, and I had a lot of respect for her, and she loved me as an FTO. She was like, you're my top FTOs. And she would send anybody I requested, or, you know, officers that I thought were that could be potentially good, that I heard from the trainers and stuff, and I would request somebody to get them. And, which we could have a whole nother episode just on training recruits, because there's just some funny stories on that.
And we will.
But there's funny stories on that. But I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. And the program has not changed. It's just, I think these younger FTOs forget where they come from. And they don't stick to the guidelines that are presented to them. Yeah. You know, I mean, there's guidelines. It doesn't change. It says, if they don't do this, then do this. You know, I mean, that's all you got to do.
I feel like you're robbing me of my next question, which was how does the today's experience training people compare to how you were trained many years ago? Well,
I mean, with technology changing, that definitely throws some curveballs, because when I started, you had a map book, and that's how you looked up your call addresses if you didn't know it. And now they have GPS, which is very detailed. I mean, you can click, you can find the call. They can use their phones. My thing is, get to the call, because I want you to get there, and then once you're there, stop, think about what you're doing, and go handle it. You know, and a lot of times,
assess the situation first.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, I had one rookie that I'd love to have on the. He's going to be an FTO soon, I think. He was trying out for it, and he asked me about it, and he was like a kid, like a spastic ADHD kid that just was. He was extremely nervous. So he goes, yeah, you know, when I'm stopping this car, I'm thinking that's like a a severed head in there, like a crazy guy. And I'm looking at like, it's probably just some dude going home from work. You know what I mean? Like, he thought the extreme, and I'm thinking like, okay, it's just nothing. So he would literally get out of the car, he'd open the door, and he'd stop and go, and he'd walk up there. And I'm like, he goes, and I'd always beat him up there. I'm like, what do you wait? I always beat my rookies to the car every time. And people tell you, Salty Sarge is very fast to get out of that police car. Like, because that's the danger zone, I feel like.
Yeah.
So if you're out of the car, you can retreat, do what you need to do. And two, it's ultimately a surprise. When I come up on you and I startle you, then that's a good thing. Because then you're not focused in on trying to hurt me. You're like, oh God, where'd you come from?
You're still preparing your battle plan.
Yes.
And you're already at the door.
I'm telling you right now, not everybody, and this is another caveat, is these younger FTOs, not everything is going to kill you, okay? I get it. Yes, officer safety is a thing. I understand that. I'm extremely vigilant. But I'm telling you right now, dude, not everybody's trying to kill you, okay? They're just not. Be prepared for it that they are, but...
Jill or Joe is just trying to get home from work.
They could just be somebody, and to them, a traffic stop is the most traumatic thing they're ever going to experience. And you'll get people that are just shaking, and I'm like, violent, like, hey, I'm not trying to rob you. Just hang out, relax.
Well, yeah, and I like the few times I have been pulled over. It's like you get amped up because it's not something you do every day.
Dude, I've been a cop for 18 years and I get pulled over. I'm still nervous.
Yeah,
okay?
you're
So
like,
I get it. I mean,
is this guy gonna do?
I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm used to the guy that pulled me over. I pulled hundreds of people over, so thousands. So I understand. I still get nervous, and I mean,
and that's not a bad thing.
No, I mean, it's just I don't know where that comes from. I mean, I don't know where that came from, but I mean, my goal is I'm not trying to hurt you. Just don't do anything dumb that I'm going to do it. Don't do anything where I'm going to have to react. And I mean, I just feel like that's how we have to approach it. And a lot of these FTOs are too extreme on that. And these rookies, they're so honed in on that instead of talking to people like they're a human. Like that's a human being, dude. That's like, that he probably has a kid. He's a mom or a dad, or he's a dad. I mean, you may have a mom. I mean, just he's a person too. That person's just
taking care of his grandma.
I mean, yes, and yes, there are bad people out there that do want to hurt you, and it's unfortunate, but that's a lower risk than every day. And I say that, and I hope praise be that I don't go to work next week and something bad happens to me. But I usually am. If I feel like I show up on a call and I feel nervous, so the hairs on my back of my neck stand up, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking for cover and just evaluating things. It's just because I want to go home. I have children and I have a wife, and I want to extend my life. This is just a job. Dude, that's all this is just a job. It just pays my bills. That's it.
And I feel like this is probably going to be in line with the next question. What do you think the biggest misconception that the general public has for police officers?
That I don't plug in at night and recharge. I'm not a robot. We're humans just like everybody else. I think that's the thing, is everybody expects us, to maintain this type of personality to where we have to be like RoboCop. I mean, that's what they want. They want you to be a robot. When I was an SRO at the school for a little while, these kids thought that I went home. They really did think that I plugged in, and they didn't know I had families. Like, I'd show them pictures of my kids, like, you have a family? Well, yeah, I'm a person just like you, man. I mean, I have a life. I mean, I would show them pictures of the fantastic Salty Sarge, like, wow, this is really cool. Like, and if people could see, and the ones that have seen the Salty Sarge understand, this is my personality. This is who I am. This reveals me. And it's not all about, and you could testify to this, there's a certain section that I have of police stuff. And yes, that's a part of my life. But my life consists of just fun and I just, you have to think, you like I said earlier, this is not, when I first started, when I was a rookie, it was a crusade for me.
Yeah.
I really bled blue, and I wanted to, and I had a bulletin board in my garage, dude, no doubt, of like bad guys that I arrested, or like hardcore guys that I wanted to get, or like significant arrests I was a part of. That I was like, this is great. Like it was an accomplishment for me.
Yeah.
I don't have, I want to explain something too. I don't have a lot of medals. I don't have hardly any. I don't have any accommodations. I'm not a Navy SEAL cop. I'm not this warrior that you know some of these guys are. I'm just some basic street cop that has been a part of this job for a very long time. I have a lot of common sense, and I'm a human, and I've learned that what you see is what you get. I don't fake it. I mean, there are some days I don't want to talk to you, and there's some days I'm approachable, personable. I mean, and there's some days I don't want to make decisions because I'm out there at work, and you have to understand, police officer, we make decisions hundreds of times a day. We have to go to people and say, look, this is what I would do, and it gets old. And when you
it's not like, hey, do I need to put this spreadsheet into this folder, or should I just move it over here?
No.
This is, hey, this guy's life is
yeah, he's got a gun to his head, and you're like, dude, like, I don't know you, but you're worth saving. Do I really mean that?
I don't know you.
I don't know this guy.
I don't want you to shoot yourself.
I don't want, because I don't want to do the extra paperwork, and I don't want to sit on a scene forever. But I really don't want people to hurt themselves. Because I understand that that's somebody's son, or that's somebody's grandson.
Yeah.
That's a human just like me. You know, and I'm not saying, and the one bad thing about police officers is the reason why the suicide rate is so high in policemen is because cops don't talk about things. They keep things inside. And one thing my wife will tell you is when I come home, I'll tell her about my day, and she'll tell me about her day. I get it out there. Why hide it? Yeah, it's about, oh my God, I want to hear about this horrific stuff. Well, you know what? It makes me feel better. It's off my chest, and I move on. And I've learned to accept the fact that one thing, you know, there was a really bad call. So I had just left campus. I was an SRO for a little while, which we'll talk about that later. But I left patrol and became a school officer, and that was a whole nother adventure. And I learned that wasn't for me. And I came back to patrol because I felt like I come from a patrol roots. I have a strong roots in patrol. I'm a diehard patrol guy, and I like being in the trenches and being in the situation. So one of my very first calls was this guy, this nut, kills his whole family, and like everybody. And the call comes out, a little boy, and it's something I'll never forget. A little boy wakes up, and he thinks that his family was being robbed and his family was murdered. Come to find out, Dad went in and killed Mom and killed everybody. And somehow he was hidden in a room, and he didn't get killed. So imagine that, right? So this young officer that goes out there, he's been on a police officer for a very short time. That's the first thing he goes to is a call like that. Okay, these are calls that my dad has never experienced in his life. He even went over with me. I've never seen anything like that.
No,
right? And here
nothing
I am.
to that level.
I have been to some calls like that, but not that level. Okay,
yeah,
it's starting to become a trend now where people get crazy and they kill their whole family for some reason, which is weird. So we get this call. It's an unusual situation. And I kept track of this young officer that was there. I was there with him. And it didn't really faze me. I mean, it was because I had already accepted the fact that I didn't have a bad day.
Yeah.
Okay? Those families had a bad day. Like
horrible
those
day.
teachers, that's a ripple effect. Because you had teachers show up to the scene like, those were our students. Like, can you tell us what's going on? And I told the young officer, I said, look, dude, you have to understand this, and this may be morbid, but they had a bad day, not you. Okay?
There has to be a disconnect.
Yes. You have to leave this and go.
You can't live with yourself.
All right, and he looked at me and said, he goes, man, I already have a psychotic sense of humor, so it didn't faze me. And I was like, you're going to do just fine in this job, young man. So, I mean, you have to kind of, and you know, 9 times out of 10, if you ever see the news and you see officers that are laughing at a homicide, they're not laughing at the victim. They're not laughing. They're laughing because they're talking about a story. Because a lot of times when a homicide detective shows up on my scene, I haven't seen him. I used to work with that guy as a patrolman, and I hadn't seen him in like 10 years. And you're catching up, and you're like, hey, man, remember that time we did that? Yeah, dude, that was great. And they're laughing on camera. And everybody's like, oh, my God, these kid cops are laughing. Someone died. It's not that at all. You have to understand is our way of dealing with it. Because let me tell you something. If you want to come out there and you want to do this job, they're hiring. They got a bonus. Come sign up. Come join me. I'll be happy to train you. If anytime anybody out here wants to do a ride along, come with me. I'll show you what I see. Come see what I see. And you can see how it will change things for you. It will change your perspective. And I have plenty. I've got some guests that I want to come on, and I want them to tell that have rode with. That didn't like policemen. Then I said, I'm tired of you talking crap about cops. Come ride with me. Come see what I see. and they rode with me, and it changed their whole perspective about policemen to where they're like, I wish I'd have done that. And, and that's kind of where I want to leave that is we're human, and you never know what kind of bad day that officer's going to come across. He may have went to a call where a kid drowned, and he couldn't have saved him. And in his mind, he's thinking, if I would have been there 5 minutes earlier, because that was me on a call.
Yeah.
Or you just told the family that, hey, I'm sorry that your dad passed away naturally in his bed. You know what I mean? And here I am thinking about, well, what am I going to eat for lunch now? And I just we have to be empathetic and sympathetic to people, but we're humans. We have to remember we're humans too, and don't ever forget that. And that's something that needs to go out there to everybody is policemen are people just like we are. And if you see something on the news, don't jump to conclusions.
Yeah.
Don't automatically, because you're not there. You're not there. That happened a long ways away from you, and you have no control over it, and you weren't there to see what caused that to happen or how he reacted.
Well, and I think we get together, and when something does happen, we discuss it.
Right.
And you and I will actually go into detail. And let me tell you something. Sometimes the cop is not always right.
That's right.
Even from a cop's perspective, sometimes people go too far. People push the limits. And we will call them on it and say, hey, this was ridiculous.
That's right. And here's my caveat to that is if you don't want a cop there, then call the fire department.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens. And a lot of times in the metro, I almost slipped up there, the metro, whenever I go clear a scene, there's 6 firemen in a truck waiting on me to make it safe. So just remember that, folks. Like, it always takes an officer to make things safe. And not everybody needs to be a police officer, but there's a lot of people that I serve with that are great, very level-headed policemen that are good folks that do a really good job.
And so, I think everybody needs to at least have the understanding of what their job is and what is going on and have some respect to that. I mean, you don't have to be, oh, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Well, just example today alone, like I'm working a side job at a church. And this idiot does something dumb, and this guy runs over to him, and his hand is shaking so violently bad while he's trying to counteract this guy. And I'm like, and I'm cool as a cucumber. I'm not shaking, and I'm like, are you okay? And he goes, yeah. And then the guy's like, why are you coming to me? And he realizes then, he goes, I didn't have an understanding of what you guys did until I experienced that. And he goes, I saw you coming, and I felt so much better that you were here. And I'm like, welcome to my world, brother. And I'm usually by myself. So, anything can be traumatic to anybody. But just remember, you can't always rely on us to be there. You have to be able to take care of things yourself, too. You need to be able to be self-sufficient as well. You can't always rely on the police. But I'm telling you right now, that policeman that you may not like that wrote you that ticket, if you called 911, he's going to be at your front door. And he's going to kick in that door and try to save your life. I guarantee it.
He's going to help you.
He's going to help you. No. No matter what you look like, who you are, I have always been. I have never looked at the call and said, oh, we're not going to that call because it's so-and-so. No, we go. And we always go. And we help and do what we can to get to those people. And I've seen lots of men and women in law enforcement do great, incredible things for other people and sacrifice themselves, not knowing that I know they have a wife and kids at home, or they have a husband, or they have, moms and dads that and I have a family too. I have a mom and dad. I can't imagine. I've never asked my mom how she's felt about me being a police officer, or even my wife. I've never asked, like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, and are you scared? And I know my wife, she knows that, I'll do what I have to do, but, it's where I've always trained my rookies where you have to take care of yourself, the citizens, your partners, the citizens, and then the bad guys. You have to put that in perspective. You have to take care of yourself first. If that looks too dangerous, don't go in there. just stand back and go, you know what? We're going to take a second.
We're going to call for backup.
Yeah, we're going to be like, hey, you know what? I'm not going there.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot of good stories about some creepy calls I went on that I was too scared to go in there, and I'm just like, I'm not going in there. Yeah. But anyway, there's another.
I'm not Keanu Reeves.
Yeah,
here.
I mean, I'm not John Wick.
Yeah,
right?
there's no John Wick here.
Or Equalizer or any of that crap. I mean, come on now. You guys pay me to, do a little bit, but I've always been told, not trying to throw myself out there, but I've had a lot of supervisors over the years that tell me like they would follow me through the front door because they know I'd be the first one through the front door, and I would be, and and it's not because I'm a hero or brave. It's just because I want to get stuff done, and I know it's going to get done right. So I mean, I'm not going to jump in there and get anybody hurt. So, but we are humans, and we have a job to do, and that's that's the way I see it.
All right, one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up. I know we've discussed a lot about it, but I did want to ask you just face-to-face right here, right now. What are you hoping to accomplish with the Salty Sarge podcast?
I just want people to get an understanding that policemen are human and that we have a sense of humor, some of us, and that it can be fun. And I want to get other guests on here, and I want to see their perspective. I mean, I would like to have people that are policemen sometimes that tell me, like, you've been pulled over. What's going through your mind? Or like I have a relative that's in the prison system. I want his perspective. Like, I've always put them in prison. What's it like on that side of it? Or I've got guys that, my father and his friends that are old school cops. Like, what's your perspective on, what you experienced and what you see and the stories that I grew up with? I mean, I just want people to understand that law enforcement can be funny and it can. I want you to see the humor in it all because some people may think some things are morbid, which some of the stories I have aren't morbid at all. We're not going to go into stuff like PTSD stuff. I mean, come on now. But
there are gory stories.
Yeah, but
we won't share.
I'm just here to talk about fun stuff, like where I have experience and I'm just like, this is so funny. I mean, and I've told you stories, or I've told my wife or other friends, and they're just laughing. They're like, the way you tell that, I mean, I can see myself being there, and it's just funny. And I just want. I want people to kind of get a sense of that and experience what I see through my eyes, and if they have questions or, anybody wants to come on and ask questions or they want to post questions, I'm happy to answer them. I mean, we can do a legal session, but it's not about politics. It's not about me being negative towards my command or bashing my police department that I work for. I've had a great career, and this is a way for me to get this off my chest and makes me feel better at night, and I sleep better. And my wife, everybody's like, this is going to be so great for you because it's a way for you to express yourself.
Yes.
And it's not anything to where it's not a political forum. There are situations where police officers can do bad things, but there's a lot of good they do too. And I've had a lot of calls where I had to look at guys and go, look, man, this is incredible. Like, you need to relax. Like, this is fun. You should thank that guy for what just happened. I mean, this is the greatest show on earth, I mean, that's why I see it.
The greatest show on earth.
The greatest show on earth. That's what it is.
Yeah. So, well, and I will speak more to that. You've talked about having other officers on, other people with other perspectives. And the more I've talked to people about this very show is the more people have gotten excited about it. Say, hey, I may not be an officer, but guess what? I'm a bouncer to a very popular nightclub. I have stories to tell.
I'd like to see their perspective.
Hey, I have 20 years in the military.
There you go.
I worked on like 4 different ships. Let me tell you stories I got there.
Yeah, I mean, it could be exactly.
It's not even exclusive to law enforcement, although.
But when you look at the Salty Sarge, you have to remember that I was a sergeant in the military too, and a police officer. So,
and those, you'll tell some of those stories as well.
Yeah. I mean, I want everybody's perspective, and I want to hear what those people have to say, and because I have questions too. I'm always curious. I feel like that growing up as a kid, the kids that asked questions were always the ones that were like punished for like what you don't ask questions. But as an adult, it's like you need to ask questions, and that's how you get information, and that's how we can get out there and we can get out there in the open. And this is going to be a great thing. It's going to be fun, and I can't wait to do more episodes. So looking forward to it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Salty Sarge Podcast. Check us out on Facebook or anywhere else you find your favorite podcast. We'll see you on the next one.